Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the build I'm currently playing, which is a Ethereal Knives Chieftain. So EK got some pretty ridiculous buffs this patch. It got 16% more damage. On top of that, it got 4 extra base crit from 6 all the way to 10, which makes it especially viable for certain classes that are quite good for casters, but cannot really do with the crit. They just don't have enough crit support, for example, Chieftain. And Chieftain, with its Enmity's Embrace scaling, getting up to 200% Fire Pen, and also capping all its other resistances through its Ascendancy, has a lot of potential here, of course. But there's some new tech that actually allows it to be a lot easier to cap. And I want to talk about this because this is not new tech, right? Like, this was used by, I think, Ruto in 3.27. This was used all over the place in 3.28. But you will notice that it's not very common. Foulborn, Skin of the Lords, with 50% increased elemental and chaos resistance. So the way this works with Enmity's Embrace, you want to get 200 over cap fire res. So what you want right here is, in brackets, you want at least 290% if you have 90 max res. What Skin of the Lords does is it's actually additive, which is good in this case, with the reduced fire res. It's not less fire res, it's reduced fire res. So the 50 gets added to the 61 and it actually goes down to 11, which results in around 130% more fire res. It also helps a little bit with chaos res capping, and if you're lucky, you can also snag a good keystone. Now, why is this so important this patch? Well, getting colors on this, since you cannot modify the colors, was basically impossible. If you as a streamer made a guide about this, there's like 3 on the market and 5 people can play her build. So it is now actually released to the general public. Or if you played this item before, you will know that you maybe snagged the one from the market. But now, guess what? Socket colors do not really matter anymore, and I just find that lovely for this chest and this interaction in particular. Another thing that changed for Chieftain is a way to get around mana cost, because last league we had, for example, the BV Chieftain, which, don't get me wrong, like BV minion pack, that was so broken. Like, I'm not claiming anything like that, but casting yourself on Chieftain is actually, like, with 10 casts per second like this, is a pain. Like, it is an absolute pain, and you can work around it, but then let's say you have Headhunter stacks with Soul Eater or whatever, it's still a shit show. So the new Abyss Jewel right here gives you an override to your Ascendancy. Now, I've already talked about this in my latest video. I talked in depth about this jewel and how you should roll it. So if you ever want to roll this jewel, definitely check that out first. There's some quirks there, but needless to say, you can get from below, and it means that insufficient mana doesn't prevent your spells cannot recover mana. Now, there's currently some bugged interactions with that. For example, it works with the chance to recover percentage mana when you use a skill, which is clearly a bug. So I did not go that route with like Indigon and whatnot. It clearly says recover, and here it clearly says cannot recover. So just in case anybody's going to point that out or compare it to this, I don't know if we're going to see that in the bug fixes, but I mean, it is already reported by multiple people. But on this character, all it does is it just lets you reserve all your mana and you never have to worry again, which I know doesn't sound big. And you might think, oh, that's worth an Ascendancy and a Timeless Jewel. And the answer is yes. It is crazy how worth it is, and it just kind of reflects the current state of mana in the game, but it is what it is. Another really cool item that they introduced this patch for this setup is Subsume the Source. Sometimes pre-Mage Blood, which I don't currently have a Mage Blood, but I'm farming up for it, so once the full build guide comes out, I'll have that as well. If you don't have the Ruby Flask with the Mage Blood, it's a little bit awkward getting your fire res up, and the tattoos are pretty expensive, so in my case, I got a few, but there it is. This helmet helps a lot. So this helmet makes it so you can socket up to 4 abyssal sockets. So this is how it looks initially. You have these sockets, and then you socket in jewels, and you get their effects, but like really strong versions of that effect. So for example, I put in 15% fire res, and it turns into 50 for a total of 150. I did not need the last one, so I threw in cast speed if I haven't dealt crit recently. 23 cast speed, also incredibly strong. I'm actually currently overcapped, but you cannot redo it once you put it in, so just keep that in mind. Important note as well, you do not need to gamble anything on this helmet. You can actually annul it down to just the 1 modifier, and it will always work. With that out of the way, why EK? Well, EK just got buffed by a lot. Like I said, it got 4 extra base crit. It's now on 10 base crit, making it a lot more accessible. 0.6 cost time, it feels so good. It got 16% more damage. This is actually a very competitive skill right now because it can also use Nemesis for single target, so it basically doubles your single target. Now, it's obviously not perfectly double. I'll quickly remove my spell echo. One thing you will notice about EK is not all of them come back equally. Some of them will actually go through you and they will go further, and some of them will stop slightly before. But you only need 1 of the blades that return to hit a single target. The reason that is actually because of how EK works. It intrinsically has a random variation of base projectile speed of plus or minus 40%. As I understand that, that's less or more. So that's pretty interesting. That explains the variation. And yeah, that is why you need a lot of projectile speed on this build. That's why I currently, if I look at MISC, I have that is EK, 219% projectile speed. And the reason you can do that as well is because of Ethereal Knives and its quality, right? So you have the quality that got changed to 20% more projectile speed. And this patch, if you have a green socket anywhere in the Skin of the Lords, you can actually make that 33. And then you can also get a 23. So yeah, there you go. Now, proc speed is pretty awkward on the left side of the tree. And so I have to go for like streamlined aerodynamics. These give me 30% proc speed per, which is not optimal because I'm obviously using Nebulous. So the way this works is for each percentage of overcap you have, you get 8% increased damage for fire, cold, and lightning. And well, you're a chieftain. So that is a lot of increased damage. And that means that I can't use once. It's very awkward. And I already have a lot of increased damage, so these clusters are not exactly great. The increased damage isn't. But it also fixes my pierce, so I do not have to go for pierce boots. These boots are really shitty right now, but I will upgrade them over time. Another nice thing about Enmity's Embrace, if you've never played it, is it automatically activates Enduring Composure because you're taking a tiny amount of fire damage. It is really just an absolute tiny amount. I also go low life, which first off gives me pain attunement. I have it on my Skin of the Lords, but otherwise I would just path there. It is 30% more damage. And on top of that, it gives me the combo of Petrified Blood plus Defiance of Destiny. Now, you don't necessarily need to do this. You can go Ashes of the Stars or something for more proc speed, or I don't know, Focused Emmy for a +4 if you want to. Deal more damage, that's all fine, but the reason I don't is because it's just so cozy, and this build is actually not that tanky for a Chieftain, mainly because of your Fizz max hit, because you have to use a Foulborn Skin of the Lords. Obviously, your LE max hit is very nice, but Fizz is kind of lacking, and that's where Defiance of Destiny comes in against the smaller Fizz hits. The biggest reason why I play EK, though, is the interaction with Pinpoint and Overloaded Intensity. If you do not know, Pinpoint gives you Intensify, and what it means is you get reduced projectiles per intensify stacks, but you also get a more damage multiplier. So in my case, you can see projectiles deal 20% more damage with hits per intensity, and you can get up to 4 of those with the Casta Mastery, giving you up to 80% more damage. It also gives you projectiles, but also loses you projectiles over time, which can be a big deal, right? You also get less damage, so while clearing, this could be awkward, but on EK, it simply does not matter. So EK and Spark are actually extremely well positioned for this patch because of Overloaded Intensity. This gem already got released 2 leagues ago. People have already been playing it, but Selfcast just wasn't that big back then. It is a ridiculous gem, and it also scales really well with gem levels, which is once again why Foulborn Skill of the Lords is really nice. So you can see right here, 2.1 base crit per overloaded intensity. You can get up to 3. So that is 6.3 base crit, and then over like, what is that, 180 or so crit multi, and it also scales with the +3 of all critical support gems from the Mastery. You can also get these stacks from Intensify support, so every skill that does well with less AoE, maybe on some builds is actually an upside, or that does not care about the less projectiles like EK or Spark, is incredibly well positioned this patch for a Selfcaster, no matter the shell. I'm also using RF of Arcane Devotion, which only gives me like 60 degen or something per second. It is completely easy. You will see once I hit the Petrified Blood threshold, it is completely smooth sailing. Even on a no region map, you do not really notice it because of the leech constantly, and you have overleech because you're low life. So yeah, you have Frostblink that you can jump around. If you have Headhunter, you're going to get Soul Eater. If you have a Mage Blood, you will get Silver Flask. So obviously that will look even better then. In general, I'm very, very happy with the movement of this build. One thing is, if you want to go shield charge, the problem is you would have to sacrifice one of your Nebulous, and I'm really not into that. It would like half your damage. And another thing is that you would have to put it on life tap, because from below only says insufficient mana doesn't prevent your spells, not attacks. But yeah, I'm still refining some stuff. I'm going to recraft my gloves. I'm going to recraft my boots. Probably going to get some more cast speed from Essence on the gloves, so my Frostblink is even snappier. And get a Mage Blood, get a Silver Flask, get Quicksilver, just make it a lot smoother. I'm really, really happy with this build. Chieftain explosions with Aureas and whatnot is just absolutely, absolutely insane. Yeah, I'll share the build guide or whatever once it's out. Obviously an expensive build, so a lot of people will not be able to follow, but maybe you could at least glean something from this video that maybe inspires you to go into a different direction. And yeah, with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.